Hey, welcome to Sar Trail. I'm Jeff. This is my friend Doug. And today what we're going to do is we're going to talk to Doug about his rig, his trailer, another rig that you have. We're going to talk about a little bit and kind of the whole purpose behind what you've done. So Doug, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your family dynamic because it's unusual. It's unique.
Okay. Well, I have 7 kids, and
7 kids plus adult, the two of you.
And so my wife and I were talking about, what are we going to do for retirement? And I was like, maybe I'll get one of these big, trucks and a 5th wheel. And she's like, yeah, but you hate pulling trailers. And we have a travel trailer, and I'm like, you're right, I hate pulling that thing. And so we're like, I don't know. So we were watching YouTube, and we saw these guys with Jeeps and camping out of the Jeeps. And we had done a lot of car camping. We'd done a lot of backpacking as a family. And we're like, I can do that. And my wife's like, oh man, I've always wanted a Jeep. So we went and got one. And well, I drove it so much. She's like, well, now I want one.
Right. So let me interject. If we were just at their house past couple days, and there's 2 Jeeps, they look very similar.
Uh-huh.
One says "Silly Boys, Jeeps are for girls" on the back,
Yeah.
and the other one says "Dad."
Yeah.
So you can tell whose Jeep is whose.
And so that's what we did. We we got the 2 Jeeps, and we saw like Epic Family Road Trip. They had a rooftop tent. I'm like, hey, that looks like something we could do.
Yep.
And so we had to get we got roof rack for each one and tents for each one, and set them up like that. And then we went to Death Valley for a while.
Okay.
And we were having problems. We were like, every couple of days we'd have to get gas and water, and then not everybody fit in these tents.
Right.
And so we strung a couple of the boys between the tents and hammocks, and it got a little cumbersome. So on the way back, we had stopped at Turtleback, actually on the way there, just to say, what's with this? It's kind of like buying a 3rd Jeep.
Sure.
And then on the way back from Death Valley, we're like, oh, we got to pull the trigger on this.
Right.
And mainly because it carries so much water, 48 gallons of water.
Yep.
And they gave me another tent. And so,
Well, and that's one of the things that drew us to Turtleback was the amount of water you can carry.
Yeah.
Plus the kitchen setup and all that we'll touch on yours. But I mean, that's huge because we would go out and camp for a week or 2 at a time, and we got 2 7-gallon jerry cans of water. Plus, every pocket, cranny, nook had a 1-gallon thing of water just stuffed everywhere. So we have another 20 gallons.
Yes.
And it's a mess. And they fall and they bust open, and it's a mess.
Oh yeah, we got those front runner jerry cans, and we had 4 of them back there, and then we had an ice chest, and then all the garb.
Yeah.
And then the Jeep was just squatting on the axle, so we had to sit there and get some airbags back there.
Yep.
And you figure if there's 5 and the kids, I have 2 teenage boys, so I had 3 adults and 2 kids, and the Jeep was just way too heavy.
Yeah.
And so that was another nice thing, is it got rid of a lot of weight off the Jeep.
That's huge. Yeah, I mean, you can tow way more than you can carry.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing. You get another set of axles back there that help you out.
Yeah.
So why the Jeep? Why did you go with the Wrangler?
Well, really, my wife was thinking a Jeep would be cool.
Okay.
Looking at videos, I have some friends of mine at work that are into Jeeping.
Yep.
More rock crawling.
Sure.
And so I'm like, hey, we want to get a Jeep.
Yep.
It was either that or a 4Runner, and we just decided on a Jeep.
Yeah. Well, super cool. All right, so let's just talk about the outside. What have you done here? Obviously, you got roof rack. This is the front runner, right?
Uh-huh.
So why front runner? What kind of brought you there?
Well, for one, we were looking at, like, Gobi rack was another one we were looking at. The thing that concerned me about the Gobi rack is force support points.
Okay.
And the front runner anchors to the roll bar through 4 supports in the back.
Okay.
In the back and in the middle.
So it anchors through the roof.
Through the roof.
To the roll cage.
Through the roll cage, yeah.
And you can mount lights to the front, right?
Uh-huh. You can mount anything to it. I have a table in the back that slides in.
Okay.
That's real nice. We had gotten these fold-up tables, but the front runner, they have a stainless steel table that folds up there that makes it very convenient.
We looked at that table and we looked at the rack for that option, and I think the table's like $300 or something.
Oh, it's double that now.
Is it really?
It's outrageously priced.
Yeah. So we didn't get that.
Yeah, we bought it and then we try not to think about it. Like all this stuff. If you think about it, you'll just get depressed.
Now you got to buy it and just put it behind you.
That's right. That's right.
All right. So these things right here, the steps, this is the envy of every Hummer person that I know. And Toyota people too, because these you can do on, I don't know how they work.
Yeah, you just pull them out.
Okay.
There.
Yeah, so since you have exposed hinges here, you can just bolt these right on. You got a step, you can easily get right to the roof.
Yes.
So those are really nice. I remember we saw it, once again, I think we've all, at one time or another, taken inspiration from Epic Family.
Yeah.
Because they've been down this road for a long time.
Yes.
And I saw them put those on there and I was like, we can't do that. So cool. All right, what else do we have? You want to talk about your awning?
That's an ARB awning. It's just your basic awning.
Yep.
I didn't want something real heavy because, man, the Jeep has like 0 payload.
Sure.
And so once you start putting stuff on there, this just comes out square. It comes out 8.5 feet. It's just your real plain Jane basic awning. Yeah, we've been very happy with it. We got a Tepui tent at the time. We were looking at pure real estate and how much room would fit. So when we first started, the front was packed full of, we use these rigid boxes.
Right.
We got from Home Depot, and that we would just pack them full of stuff.
Sure.
And so I needed that real estate up there, and these things fold out the side and give us a pretty good footprint to sleep a lot of people. And so that's what made us go with a folding tent. Now things are different. I would have picked a different style tent for sure.
Right.
But at the time, it really worked out.
And that's why we started off with our Tough Stuff tent, which is very similar to this, not quite the level of quality, but we started off with it because of price point, and because of just space. Minimal roof space, so you can still put gear on the roof, and then it folds out open, and you can fit 3 people in it if you have to. Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Most of my family has their ham radio license, so we just mounted the ham radio antenna on there.
Right up there in the center.
Yeah, some people we were wheeling with used CB, and so I have a CB antenna up there, and then now the popular thing is GMRS, so we'll get a little antenna for that. Right. My wife looked at the antennas and said, "Not on my Jeep," so I had to go a little stealthier on the antenna selection. But with the Jeep, it made it nice. So I just used thin coax and went right through the gasket there. Right. And so very little. You don't really see much, and so it works out great.
All right, so you want to show the communications then next?
Sure.
All right, so we're inside the Jeep now. So you got tons of communication here, navigation things. Just kind of walk us through what you have, because this is a really great setup.
Well, what I really wanted is I didn't want something that was real seen a lot. I wanted a clear screen or windshield, and I didn't want stuff to be seen from outside the Jeep that much.
Sure.
And so this is a company weapon gear. It's made to mount carbines on.
Sure.
But I saw it as a way to mount radios, and so I have a ham radio. It's a D-Star, so it does digital.
Okay.
And what I liked about that is it communicates with my wife's Jeep, and so it tells me direction and distance. And so this is the ham radio. I have a CB, and then a GMRS.
So another thing too. Did you track GPS the 2 vehicles? Do you have a way of doing that?
Not GMRS. This has a GPS unit. My wife's ham radio has a GPS unit, and they communicate back and forth.
Perfect. That's awesome.
And I can also, with this, communicate to my tablet.
Okay.
And it'll show on a map where she's at if need be. Or
that's really cool.
I can actually take pictures and send it back.
Nice. Okay, so right now on your tablet you have all your Victron. So this is monitoring everything battery charging related to your trailer.
That's correct. Yeah, and so I can look at any of the voltages, how it's charging.
Which is, we're learning that's really important information, because especially now we're not in our H3, so we're driving a different truck, and we've driven for an entire day and charged nothing.
Yes.
And we just didn't know.
Oh, gotcha.
So that's good information to have.
What's nice is when you're charging, especially through the 7-pin, it's good to kind of know how much current you're pulling through there.
Sure.
Because here's my brake controller, my Red Arc brake controller.
Right.
It'll throw a ground fault, and it makes it's not a problem. You just have to turn up the brakes a little bit.
Right. So you adjust.
Yeah.
Because you have the information. All right. So up here you have some 67 design mounting.
Yes, and this is just to mount my phone.
Okay.
The ball is if I had something else to mount, which I don't, so
Sure.
it's just empty.
Okay. And then some more communications up here. What else do we have?
I have a GMRS walkie-talkie, which makes it real easy when you're going over obstacles to hand somebody a walkie-talkie.
Sure.
And to help you out.
So they're outside the vehicle, you're inside, they got a handheld.
And it's easy just to turn on the GMRS.
Yep. Perfect. How do you like these handhelds?
They're great just for your basic cheapy radio.
Okay.
But if you're doing ham radio, it's real basic and
Sure.
yeah, it's very limited.
Brett, out here on trail communication, they function. I mean, you're pretty much set. But I know you, Doug, so what are you adding to this next?
What am I adding? Well, one of the things is my wife saw this and she says, no way on the antenna, like on the antennas. And her head unit is just a little itty bitty thing. It tucks up higher than this mount.
Okay, so she has less of all of this.
Yeah, it's just tucked away.
Gotcha.
More.
Okay.
Right. And so from the outside, you do see, I guess, this hanging down. But that's about it.
I'll say when we were at Doug's house, he said, hey, look in the window and tell me if you see my communication stuff. And I looked in and I'm like, I don't think you have any. Because from the outside, you cannot see this. I mean, I guess you could see this one thing unless it was tucked up.
Yeah.
But you don't see any of this, which is really cool. You pull into a grocery store or whatever it might be, you're somewhere. If you have everything laid out right here, you could get broken into. Someone smash the window and say, hey, I know this stuff's worth something. So I do like this idea. And it doesn't block your view. Because on the Wrangler, like we have a bigger windshield on our H3.
Uh-huh.
So this real estate, we could take up a little bit of it and lose less percentage-wise. But here, man, your windshield's tight.
Yes, yeah.
So you start stacking everything across here and...
Well, I saw like these bars that some people have that go across here. And I'm like, there is no way I want to take up that much windshield with a bar. And so that's why I got this 67 design that tucked into this hole, this little cubby here that I hardly used anyways.
Right. So one thing we didn't talk about, what year is it? What model? There's a JL, there's a JK. What do you have here?
I have a JL. It's a 2020. It's the same as my wife's.
Okay.
In 2018, they made a JK and a JL. After that, no more JKs.
Okay, so just JLs from then forward.
Yeah, and so we got the JL. So far, the thing, I know I had some friends that had JKs that were complaining about power.
Right.
We've been very happy with the power it's had. We haven't really, of course, you always want more power pulling up a hill, pulling a trailer, but
sure.
I would say that it meets our needs completely. We haven't had any issues with it.
And this one is, correct me if I'm wrong, it's an 8-speed transmission,
Yes,
right?
which makes a big difference.
Huge difference. Our Hummer currently sits at a 4-speed transmission. You only have so many choices at that point. So 8 different gears, 8 different ways to stay within your power band. That's nice.
Yes.
That takes whatever your horsepower is and really makes it much more attainable, functional.
You're always at the right RPM.
Yeah, stop.
Yeah.
All right, let's see, what else do we have? So around the back, you got the high lift jack. Have you ever used it?
Well, this, to me, I'm thinking that the high lift is just becoming a badge that says you have a Jeep. I've never used it. I got it on here. I know how to use them.
Yeah.
I do have an attachment. It's buried and it's in the back here. That goes onto this. It has 2 nylon straps that hook into the tire.
Oh, nice.
And so, in the past, I've used a high lift to lift a vehicle. It gets a little squirrely.
Right.
With that thing is as steady as can be.
Okay, so that's a downside to the high lift, is you're lifting the frame, not the suspension. So you got to lift up really high to change a tire. But if you put the straps under it, then you're lifting.
You're lifting the tire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, then you got to lift it, but you can't work on it.
You got to brace it.
So you got to stick stuff underneath and then lower it down on top.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a trade-off all the time.
I think eventually this is going to be replaced with, I've seen these really nice bottle jack options.
Yeah.
that have axle stands and everything in the kit, and I can store it internally.
I think that's what we're going to go with as well. You know,
Yeah.
this looks great, and I get it. You have your off-road cred as soon as you put one of these on, but
Well, here's the other thing. See the strap that's holding it on?
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's a rattle box back here. Yeah. So,
all right,
Yeah.
so let's turn our focus to your Turtleback trailer. So you got your Turtleback before we did,
okay.
quite a bit before we did. We actually were at Overland Expo, met you guys, was that 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2021.
2021 when we first came back after the lockdowns. And we had ours ordered, but it hadn't been delivered yet, hadn't been manufactured yet. So we saw yours. And then that's how you and I became friends and started chatting about, you know, different batteries and charging and all this. So, and so you're an engineer.
Uh-huh.
So you understand all of this stuff, or you can learn it quickly,
Yeah.
where I'm not. So it's a different language for me. That's why we call Doug when we're broken down or we have troubles. So tell us why Turtleback, and then we'll kind of talk about what makes your trailer a little bit different than some others and what you've done to it and some of the plans that you have for the future for it.
We had looked at a lot of different trailers and really narrowed it down to Patriot
Mhm.
and Turtleback.
Sure.
And then so we called up a lot of the reason we saw the Turtleback is lifestyle overland.
Sure.
And so I actually sent him, corresponded with him and said, why Turtleback over Patriot?
Yep.
And then he gave me some reasons why, and then gave me another contact of a guy who actually had both.
Right.
And the person that he gave preferred the Patriot. And so we started looking at that. And but when I talked to the Turtleback folks, the issues he had about being some of the upgrades
Right.
that the Patriot had, Turtleback had already included those, like lithium batteries and stuff
Sure,
like that.
sure.
The thing that I liked was that the kitchen had opened up into the back instead
Right.
of to the traffic side if you pull over.
Right.
Right then it was during COVID, and I really liked the fact that this was made not only in the U.S., but made in Arizona.
Right. Even better. Right.
Yeah. I liked when I saw it how heavy duty it was. I mean,
Yes.
it's 1/8" aluminum,
Right.
right? So that's pretty rugged.
Right. For sure.
And then on our Death Valley trip, and living in the desert, water is everything.
Right.
And they have 48 gallons of water. And I liked how they integrate the hot water heater. It was a feature that I really liked. The whole advantage of a tankless is you only heat water when you need it.
Sure.
And there's waste heat in a tanked hot water heater,
Sure.
right? And so in cold weather, that waste heat is heating the interior of the box, and the interior of the box is where the water and your water lines are.
And food that you don't want to freeze either.
Yeah, that's right.
So you have the tanked water heater, which is putting off heat, your waste heat, like you call it,
Mhm.
which is then being reused to heat the entire compartment of the trailer, which we love it because we don't really care about the temperature outside. We know we're going to burn some propane, but we're not going to freeze the inside.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that drew us to Turtleback as well, was your water tanks aren't hanging on the bottom like almost every other off-road trailer. They're up inside the main compartment, which you control the temperature of.
Yeah, and another thing, when I was looking at tankless for homes,
Mhm.
you had a minimum flow rate.
Okay.
And what I like, and I'm not sure if they fixed it on the trailers or not,
Okay.
but with a hot water tank, you know, I'm used to, like, when you're backpacking, you conserve water pretty well.
Right.
I like to trickle the water when I'm like rinsing off stuff.
Sure.
And I like the fact that I can still have warm water, and I mean, it's just a comfort item, right? So my hands don't get cold.
Well, right, but it's important though. You get.
Yeah.
I mean, we have
Well, that's the
washed.
whole trailer, right? Is
It is.
comfort.
I mean, we've been out when it was just our Hummer washing dishes, not really having any hot water. Your hands are frozen. You can't get anything clean with cold water. That's 40-degree water on a 30-degree day. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But then you crank on the hot water. It changes things. These are the things that aren't called roughing it.
Yeah.
You got your 23.0 shower temp right here.
Yes, which I love, the 23.0 shower tent, until I saw your last video.
Right. With the Darche.
With the Darche, yeah, that's right.
I'm telling you, this was a huge upgrade for us. The 23.0 shower tent was huge upgrade from what we used before. But I think the Darche is an equal upgrade over this just because
Yeah.
of the blackout technology. It's got the roof on it. It's a taller tent. You just get more privacy.
Well, what's nice is you pull this pin, you pull it out, and you can fold it. You know, you have instant privacy.
Yep.
And a recent example of this is we're with a large group with Turtleback.
Yep. Yep.
And we're doing the Mojave Road. We stopped in the middle of a dry lake bed, and we've been driving all day.
Yeah.
And well, I'm looking around, and I can't even see a bush or a twig or anything. And well, it was real nice. I pulled this out, and I'm like, maybe nobody will notice until I look around and all their shower tents are open.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that really drew us. We had been out on the road, out in the middle of nowhere, and when you got to go, you got to go. And if there's no place to go, you got your own privacy right there.
That's right.
It really is huge. All right, so let's move this way, and don't let me miss anything that you love about the trailer that's unique to your trailer.
Well, I like the front box.
Okay.
You know, I like the box in that, you know, you got your big lithium batteries. We got the Victron. I think now they're running Red Arc. I still like the Victron because of well, I can do whatever I want with.
Yep.
Right, it's as expandable as all get out. One of the things I did is a lot of times when we're camping with this trailer, it's really just at a campground.
Right.
And I'm plugging in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wouldn't plug in. I would, you know, everything's self-contained.
Right.
But then, you know, half of the time, you know, it was a week long. It was like a family camp. Halfway into it, my thing's all set up and everything, and I'm out of propane.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a pain. And I'm like, you know, I'm paying for electricity. I'm just not using any.
Right. You're at a campground. You could plug in, but you're not.
That's right.
So.
And so I upgraded to a regular 30 amp service.
Okay.
This is a box I added so that it monitors the pedestal power to make sure that it's safe.
Okay.
Before that it applies power to the trailer. And then I got my my inverter, and then I hooked up the hot water heater.
Right.
Which normally runs on gas, to now it'll run on gas, or if it senses electricity, it'll automatically switch over and run off of the power. Or I can, if I turn on the inverter, it'll run off a battery, which you got to be careful because it uses a lot of power.
Right. And when we get back to the water heater, we're going to talk a little bit more about that upgrade.
Yeah.
Because it's one that I love, and one that you have now done a different version of on our trailer, which I got to say, it's genius.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that.
One of the things I wanted to do here also is all the power going back here to charge the batteries, it shares the same ground as my brakes.
Okay.
And so that's why I had mentioned before that when you're charging your batteries, it adjusts your brakes slightly.
Sure.
The next upgrade is going to be, these are isolated converters, so I can separate the charging power from the brakes, and then I'm going to run a separate cord up here and add another DC to DC, so I can charge it with a substantial amount of power.
Sure.
And then I could keep my hot water heater going while I'm on the road, which would be nice when I'm driving, if I'm driving through cold country.
Right.
Or just as a luxury item, I get to the campsite and the hot water is just hot.
So the Dometic heater that runs on propane, you can't use it while you're driving. It'll just burn out the flame, and then you got a problem. It doesn't work. So you run it off of the electricity that you're generating.
Yes.
So like you're saying, it can keep your compartment warm if you're in crazy cold weather, or you pull up and it's already, hot water's already there.
That's right.
Which, that's a cool thing too, and it doesn't cost you anything to do that.
The advantage of the Victron setup is it's so adaptable.
Right.
Right. I got an 18 amp charger here. I'm just going to add a 30, so it'll be 48 when I'm running.
Right.
Right now it shares the 7-pin. I'll keep that capability.
Right.
But when I plug in an Anderson, it would just switch everything over.
And we want to do that same mod too. Switch over, you'll get more charging, you'll be able to charge faster. And that's something we're learning now, especially we're on a different vehicle. We're not charging very well.
Yeah.
So, it takes us a lot of miles to charge up our battery bank while driving. Now, when we go up and do the same thing you're going to do, we're going to charge at a faster rate.
Yeah.
So that's big.
The other upgrade I had them do is I had them install an inverter charger. So it operates much like an RV. That when I have power, it passes through power into the trailer, and then it charges the batteries at the same time, and it does it manipulates it to where it charges with whatever power is left over that's not being used off of, like, let's say a 15 or a 30 amp circuit.
Sure. And then, Turtleback trailers are really designed for the off-road, off-grid type of thing, but there are a couple things you can do to it to make it function in a campground where you would plug into shore power, where you would do all of those things and give yourself the capability of off-grid and shore power, like really good function.
Like upgrading your trailer was I would say, a very simple modification to add in. right? Just add the switch and now it's electric.
Yeah, and which is super cool. So you're set up differently here on your tunnel box. Where ours, we have the fridge freezer in there and minimal storage. You have tons of storage.
Yeah, so I use these rigid boxes from Home Depot to store everything.
Yeah,
and I
so,
just use it for storage.
When we had this idea, you know, I didn't really do the math on ours of putting in this, you know, really big fridge, and then then we'll have like the other half of the box to store a bunch of stuff. We could put chairs, put this and that. Oh man, it's going to be great. Well, the fridge takes up almost the whole box, other than like 10 inches on the other side, where you have so much space. So it's a trade-off like anything.
Yeah, I like these rigid boxes, even very heavy duty.
Yep.
And they lock in place, which I really like.
Oh, that is nice. They don't just stack.
I put a rubber mat down here.
Okay.
Again, it was a floor mat from Home Depot. I cut the shape.
Yep.
It was a Turtleback video. I think they had it on how to cut
Okay.
these things out, and I really like it because nothing slides, and these things are locked in place, so I don't get really much movement even when we're off on the trails.
Sure, that's nice. Oh, your stakes. You got to show the stakes. This is something we're going to upgrade to. This is our first time seeing them. I'd heard about them, but this is something that we're gonna change to.
This is a company. It's called Ground Grabba.
Grabba.
And it uses a stake like this. When you're done, it locks on. They have another plate in there that is just flat that it screws into,
right? And
you can hook on. So let's say your awning legs, I can screw it at the awning legs, and it pulls directly up.
Nice.
And then I use an impact wrench. I have a corded one, old school.
Yep.
But I got the inverter.
Yeah.
And you just drives them in. It drives them out.
Yeah. So it's you can see here where it goes in, and it just goes in like you're drilling it right on in. Impact drilling it right in, so you can go into some pretty hard ground, and it's going to grab all of these. What would you call these? Like kind of paddles?
Yeah, like an auger.
Yeah, like an auger, and it's all going to grab. So you're not going to pull it directly up. You got to actually unscrew it to get it out.
So in Arizona, we have some real hard dirt, and so they actually have a masonry bit that is the diameter of the shaft, so you can pre-drill it on the real hard stuff. But you know, I found one thing with nails, you know, using spikes, is I upgraded to heavy-duty nails because I'd bend them.
Yep.
And then you pound them in, and if it's a soil that holds down real well, it's really hard to get them out.
Right.
Or then you're in other stuff that would be real soft, where they don't hold worth a darn.
Sure.
And so Ground Grabba, I have a set that's the 1 foot, and then I have another one that's 2 foot with a wider auger.
Yep.
And I can put that into the sand dunes and it's in there
2 feet down, and it's grabbing sand 2 feet below surface.
Yeah,
it's a lot of weight holding it down at that point.
That's right. We went to some sand hills in Texas and used those, and it was in there really well.
Sold. We're gonna get these. These are a bit pricey though, right?
Yeah.
How much for the kit would you say? I mean, you have what, 18 or 24 of them, right?
I have 24 of each, and I think it was $800.
Okay, so we don't need as many, so we could certainly drop our price. I think we need like 6 or something like that. So that would.
I think they're almost $20 a piece.
Oh mercy. But so we, you know, all the tent stakes, we don't use those any longer. We went to the galvanized big huge nails things from Home Depot. We bought those in California. We were out in Halama Beach camping, and we destroyed every one of our stakes, our tent stakes. And they had these things that you could buy there that were like $20 a piece. They weren't these even. So I'm like, no. We went to Home Depot and grabbed these big galvanized nails and just boom, boom, and they were like 98 cents a piece. And I'm like, if I bend one, I don't care. But then you can't get them out of the ground.
You know, it's one of these things that I remember when I'd go backpacking, I'm like, you know, it seems like backpacking, they just marked up the price 2 or 3 times from what normal price you would think would be. And that was it. And then this whole overlanding thing, they just, you know, did another multiplier onto that pricing.
Another 2x. And,
oh, yeah. It's every time I buy something, it's like, you know, I really like it. But if I think a lot about the price, I just kind of get a little depressed.
All right, so you want to talk awning and tent?
Okay. Yeah, I got the Darche awning. It's 270 degrees. It has legs.
So, and this is a turtleback setup where you raise it up, right?
Yes, it manually raises up. One of the problems though with it is that I run into issues where it hits these poles.
Yep.
And so it gets a little clunky.
Right.
So when I lift up and I deploy the awning, I actually, if it's going to rain, I will tie some paracord on. I have, you know, just a like a carabiner that'll latch on, that'll go to the end of the awning.
Okay.
One of the tricks I found with these type of tents, if you know it's not going to rain, I take off the awning or the rain fly.
Sure.
And it makes it so much quieter in the wind.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, these things are obnoxious in the wind.
They are. They are.
The Dart J, then I got the wall kit.
Yep.
And what we really sold us on that is you get one of these fire boxes, and you stick it, you know, the propane fire pit in the inside the enclosed awning.
Right.
And it just really heats it up and makes it really nice. We've gone to a family camp where we'll be there for like a week and it rains a lot.
Right.
And the wall kit is nice that we have a place to stand up and be out of the rain. And that makes it nice.
Sure. So, Rome 10. How do you like it?
Okay, so comparing it to the Tepui,
Yeah.
it's very similar. I would say that it's not quite as heavy duty.
Sure. Right. So on your Tepui, you got the ruggedized version, which is just
Yes.
beefier or heavier duty.
Yes.
Where this one's not like a ruggedized version.
Yes.
So and then what else were you saying? You like the dome shape of it?
I like the dome shape because it's rounded on the top versus square.
Okay.
And because sometimes if the Tepui is not pulled real tight on that
Right.
rain fly, you'll pond water.
Right.
And so that's kind of a hassle.
Sure.
You got to get the rain fly just right on that.
Okay.
Where this doesn't seem to have that problem.
That's nice.
But
But
then
you can
like,
see the bar has that dome shape to it.
yeah, and that's nice. But the bar, the holds on, you know, where it slips through,
Right.
it's plastic. And I thought that was kind of odd. Where my Tepui is nylon.
Right.
If I had to pick, I think the nylon would last a lot longer. But
You would think it would stitch in better, maybe longer term, but
it's still holding.
okay, good. So, what size? How big is this one?
This
How many-
is 72.
So 72 by what is it? 94 or something?
When it's fully deployed, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Um,
nice. It's nice and wide.
It's the size of the trailer.
So
you know?
last night you slept in there with two of your boys. Plenty of room.
Oh, plenty of room.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. So they call the Tepui a three man, and yeah, I'm not sure where they found those size men to fit in there.
Well, that was our tough stuff. Same exact dimensions as your Tepui. Very similar tent, just not quite as refined.
Yeah, I think it's 3 kit.
Right.
Where this is a 4-man 4 kit, and I
Right.
think you could fit 3 people in here.
Yep.
Reasonably well.
Yeah, that's what we found on our tough stuff when we had it. It was great for Natalie and I. When it was super cold and we had to put Bailey in, we put her head by our feet. Because
Okay.
3 shoulders across didn't really work, especially when she got a little bit older. You kind of pick and choose.
Yeah.
But it worked okay. We crammed in there. It wasn't great, but we crammed in and did okay. So I would say 3-person in quotations.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, you got a box over here. Anything particular you store in your different boxes? We have ours set up kind of.
This is just like I have, you know, for stuff for tents. I keep an extra water filter in here. You know, I have some, you know, gloves, some oil.
So
It's my utility stuff. Yeah.
For sure. Okay. All right, so coming around the back, this is one of the things that sold us on Turtleback was just all the storage you have in the kitchen, the flat countertops, and I mean just.
Well, you know, I like about it is I made coffee out of Keurig, so
Yeah.
it makes it awful easy, right? You know, I just turn on the inverter and
Yeah, you're plugged
There it
in
goes.
right here. You're running your Keurig. I mean, when like he came over to our camp right over there this morning and says, "Hey Jeff, bring your cup over. I got some coffee." I'm like, "I didn't smell you making any coffee. I didn't hear it." And it's like you just pressed a button.
yeah, and so that's kind of nice. We went with this off-brand because it fits in the shelf real nice.
Okay, yeah, it's
By the
really
way,
small.
We had a Keurig brand and it didn't fit back there, and so we got this Deluxe, and it fits in those drawers perfect.
Nice. Oh, one thing we didn't touch on your Jeep. We're going to touch on real quick now. So you got 2 roto packs here, so 8 gallons of fuel you can carry.
Yeah.
What did you do to your Jeep for fuel? Both of your Jeeps for fuel.
So when we went the Mojave Road, I wanted to make sure I had plenty of gas. We went to Long Range America and got their gas tanks installed.
Right.
And so now the Jeeps hold 38 gallons each.
So you added 37, or you added 17 gallons more per Jeep.
Yeah.
So, and it's an additional auxiliary tank that then has a pump that will pump into the main tank when you hit a switch.
I have a button on my dash that has the 4 LEDs that say how much fuel's in there, and I can just push it and it transfers it over. Easy as can be.
Yeah. Do you know what kind of range that gives you? Let's say.
Well, it depends. Pulling this.
Well, you lose some.
It gives me, like you say, it's 17 versus I think the Jeep came with a little over 20, so it gives me what
almost double, other than the trailer.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's good range.
Yeah, it makes it nice. So I guess these aren't quite as needed. What it did allow me to do on the Mojave Road is do the Mojave Road, then get back over to Arizona to buy Arizona gas in California. So.
Right. So you can kind of pick and choose a little bit. You get more miles to negotiate.
That's right. I found these roto packs. The basic setup, pouring them into the Jeep is kind of a pain with their little safety valve they have. And
so this storage up in here, one thing we've noticed on Turtleback trailer owners, you got the storage underneath your tent, or underneath, we'll say, your roof rack of the trailer, whether you have a tent there or not. Some people don't use theirs at all. We pack ours full. So what's your approach?
Well, I can show you. I have my paper towel holder that typically goes over here for a paper towel.
Yep.
I got my garbage picker upper.
Okay.
And back there is a big rug.
So your camp
indoor
rug.
Outdoor rug, if I want to put that out.
Okay. So you kind of take a minimal approach and not stuff yours full. We have our stuff pretty heavy.
Well, I'd like to take a look and see what you put up there. It's kind of an odd shape, so.
It is.
I haven't. We put our privacy tent sometimes.
Okay. Yep.
In here, just stuff that if it gets real dirty, it's not. If we get a privacy tent where we're gonna put the tent like out a ways,
right?
Some of the like the Turtleback, the herd gatherings, everybody's hunkered around in a spot, so you'll stick another tent, in the bushes.
Correct.
Someplace.
Right. So you do have some privacy.
That's right.
Makes sense.
That's right.
All right, then you have this here. This is one other thing I'm going to say. A lot of guys don't use it.
Yeah, I have my awning poles in there.
Okay, that's good use.
All right, and another thing I upgraded to was, since I have an inverter charger.
Yes.
They had just the 15 amp plug here.
Okay. But
that requires you to plug into a GFI connector.
Yes.
And I was having some trouble at the last time I was at a campground. And when the inverter would do its checks, it would blow the GFI.
Okay.
And so I wanted to go to the 30 amp, and then I don't have to. So what I did is I added a 30 amp connector there. And what I did is I got some aluminum and had it machined so that it would take the spot that fills in the pass-through.
Right.
Is what you have.
Yep.
And then this thing mounted onto it. And then this goes into my inverter. Well, first it goes through the device that looks at the panel, makes sure everything is okay.
Right.
It takes out any surges.
Okay.
Once everything's good, it hits a relay, delivers power to the inverter.
Nice.
And then the inverter will do the, it'll power up the trailer with shore power. It will then take any residual power that's available and charge my batteries. I like that because it's an 80 amp charger.
Okay.
So it charges up the batteries
Fast.
real fast. And with the 30 amp, I can charge my batteries. I can run the hot water heater
Right.
at the same time.
Right.
And I can use my outlet. So I could be, on a Keurig.
Right. So you can run an awful lot of power through here, a lot of use.
That's right. Like I said, I could be making coffee off electricity, heating water, and charging batteries all at the same time.
Yeah, that's pretty huge.
And the reason I like it is when I'm going to the campgrounds,
Yep.
those times, it's all available. It's right there for free. So,
Right.
now I get to use it, and it's set up to where I just don't have to worry about it. I plug in, and I know everything works, and I've been really happy with it.
Really nice. Well, I know there's more upgrades to come, and I'm going to be keeping in touch with you on those so we can just follow right down those footsteps. And man, I love this rig. When you pulled up at Expo 2 years ago, we were like, whoa, it looks cool. Everything just looks great. I love the colors, and And so he pulls up with his whole family, and they start unfolding tents left, right, and center. I mean, there's just tents everywhere and everywhere. And everybody's pouring out of these Jeeps. It's like an army showed up, and it was super cool. And it's been such a pleasure staying at your house, then coming out camping with you, and just really getting to know you and your family. I mean, what an awesome time we've had. We've been super blessed to be with you guys.
We've enjoyed having you.
Yeah, well, thank you. And cool rig. And then we got to plan something else in the future where we can get together and just get out on the trails.
Most definitely. Well, you got to, upgrade your charger.
Gonna have to make another run.
Yeah.
Another run to Tucson
and
area.
solar.
And solar. Yep. Very cool.